Moving on to the next big story we're discussing. British Broadcasting Corporation, which is the BBC, has released a documentary on Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Gujarat Riots. This is a two-part series called India, the Modi Question. The first episode of the series has been released. This pertains to the Gujarat Riots and then Chief Minister Narendra Modi. Now, the film has come under question for showing Modi as guilty of the riots by virtue of a UK report. The Indian MEA has all now slammed the series, calling it a propaganda piece designed to push a discredited narrative. Remember, topmost court of India, that is the Supreme Court, had given a clean chit to Prime Minister Narendra Modi for the 2002 riots case, a case that ran for 20 years.
Do note that this has not been screened in India, so I am only going to comment on the context of what I have heard about or have my colleagues have seen. Let me just make it very clear. We think this is a propaganda piece designed to push a particular discredited narrative. The bias, a lack of objectivity, and frankly a continuing colonial mindset is blatantly visible. If anything, this film or documentary is a reflection on the agency and individuals that are peddling this narrative again. It makes us wonder whether about the purpose of this exercise and the agenda behind it. And frankly, we do not wish to dignify such efforts.
Now, what has also happened is that new UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who is, of course, of Indian origin, snubbed a Pak origin MP in UK Parliament when this issue was raised. Listen.
Mr. Speaker, last night the BBC revealed the Foreign Office knew the extent of Narendra Modi's involvement in the Gujarat massacre that paved the way for the persecution of Muslims and other minorities we see in India today, with senior diplomats reporting that the massacre could not have taken place without a climate of impunity created by Modi, and that he was, in the FCO's own words, directly responsible for this violence. Given that hundreds were brutally killed and that families across India and the world, including here in the UK, are still without justice, does the Prime Minister agree with his diplomats in the Foreign Office that Modi was directly responsible? And just what more does the Foreign Office know of his involvement in this grave act of ethnic cleansing?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the UK government's position on this has been clear and long-standing and hasn't changed. Of course, we don't tolerate persecution where it appears anywhere, but I'm not sure I agree at all with the characterisation that the honourable gentleman has put forward.
The question we asked today is this new documentary on Gujarat riots just an attempt to rehash an old charge that has been discredited? Ashok Sajjanhar is former diplomat joining us. Tushar Gupta is senior editor Swarajya magazine. Kapil Madan is political analyst. Ashok Sajjanhar, I want to come to you first and understand from you. Basically, the only new thing about this documentary that people are talking about is that there is an account by the then UK FS, Jack Straw, who has revealed that the British government at that time concluded that Narendra Modi proactively prevented the police from stopping the riots. Of course, it's a matter that has been legally looked at in India. But you've got the Indian Foreign Secretary of the time, Kanwal Sibal, also going on record on social media to say that this was the mischief by UK mission. They circulated a highly slanted court report to other envoys as well. How are we to look at a foreign government's report on what has happened in India?
I think highly undesirable, highly objectionable. The diplomats who work here, it is not their remit to go and investigate and to inquire. I think they are here to, fulfill their diplomatic responsibilities. So I would, and, also if you have to see, Shivani, that why is this issue being brought up after 20 years? Has there been some sort of a new evidence that has come that you're talking about? Even as far as, whatever the Foreign Secretary Jack Straw is talking about, I don't think that document is available in the public domain. So, no one can really comment on it as to how rigorous was the investigation. In any case, it is not, India is not a colony of the British that they can come and do investigation about what is happening. As you have said very correctly, the Supreme Court has gone into it, the whole issue, for 20 years, I think, and it has given a clean chit totally to the Prime Minister. I think this particular report is, as the External Affairs Ministry's official spokesperson has said, this is, absolutely untenable. To me, it gives, it is also made reference to something about, Article 370, which has been guaranteed. This was a temporary provision. So this is really indicative of low cost, low accuracy, low effort journalism by BBC. The only thing it is going to do is it is further going to damage the credibility of BBC. And at least as far as people in India are concerned, they are going to increasingly move away from its reporting.
Kapil Madan, it's not the first time that BBC is being accused of its very anti-India and in many times anti-Hindu slant as well. There are countless such occasions when this has been highlighted by people in India and also by people living in Britain itself. The whole thing sounds like you're just trying to rehash what has been a settled matter, because for a certain lobby, globally, as well as in India, and for a certain segment, this is something that is their pet story. And that pet story is being revived, despite the fact that there's been a legal battle through to the Supreme Court and adjudicated upon.
Now, Shivani, we all know that in this particular matter, the Supreme Court intervened and an SIT was formed. SIT gave its report, and thereafter the matter was heard by the Honorable Supreme Court, where the issue was whether there was any larger conspiracy that was hashed and senior government functionaries was involved or not. Now the Supreme Court has given its verdict, wherein Mr. Narendra Modi was given a clean chit. But at the same time, we cannot lose sight of the fact that the genocide happened there. We cannot dispute the fact that riots happened there.
Nobody is disputing that. Who's disputing that there were riots there?
Now, allow me to make my point here. Now, the fact remains, we cannot lose sight of the fact, and nobody can dispute, the fact that people lost their life in the Gujarat riots. Though the Honorable Supreme Court has given a clean chit to Mr. Narendra Modi and said that there was no larger conspiracy, but the fact remains, if some documentary is being, published, which shows the genocide as it happened. Remember, Mr. Narendra Modi and the BJP government also publicly supported the Kashmir files that was also, made on so-called factual, the factual incident that happened, the genocide that happened in Kashmir.
But there's a difference between a documentary and a film.
No one refuted the fact that, the said fact happened. My only point
is... No, people did refute it. People till today refute that there was no genocide of Kashmiri Hindus in Kashmir. No, but you're not... Kapil, you're not getting my point.
Looking at the documentary...
First of all, there's a difference between a documentary. I don't think he can hear me. Can you just lower his audio? I don't think he can hear me. First of all, there's a difference between a documentary and a film. Film is based on certain real events. The documentary cannot really use any creative license. It has to be what it is. But the fundamental question I'm asking is not whether the riots happened or whether the Kashmiri Hindu genocide happened. That's obviously undisputable, right? The question I'm asking is, if this is an attempt to somehow, Tushar, bring the repute of Narendra Modi globally down, somehow, puncture the image, somehow puncture his popularity in India and also globally. Because it is directly holding him responsible in some ways of the riots.
Spot on, Shivani. Absolutely spot on. Look at the timing of it. Just during the year when India has got the G20 presidency, suddenly out of nowhere, BBC curates a 2-episode series on the riots of 2002. Now, Kapil can do all his buts and howevers and whatsoevers, but the fact is that the Supreme Court of India has given a clean chit. It has conducted its investigation, and it has also observed that there were some elements who were probably using the victims of the 2002 riots to peddle their own agenda. So let's not get into the intricacies of it, the legal ones, of course. But the bottom line is that the Prime Minister has been given a clean chit a long time ago. The people of India have given him a clean chit, more importantly. But Shivani, on a larger perspective, this is the same old narrative which is being peddled by the usual suspects. That this government is anti-minority, that this government is working against Muslim interests. And we are going to see a lot of it in the coming year until the 2024 elections. Because this is what they have. They will recall the 2002 riots. Then it will be about the lack of work done for the Muslims. Someone will bring up the CA and NRC. The entire agenda of, peddling such documentaries or articles. We'll see a lot of articles also in the year ahead from New York Times to Washington Post that this government is somehow anti-minority. But I'll tell you, Shivani, what no one will talk about. That this government has done more for minority welfare, especially Muslims, in its first term than the Manmohan Singh government did in its second term, be it scholarship to Muslim students, be it minority welfare on a larger scale, but no one will talk about that.
No, but Tushar, I think it's unfair to bring that into this discussion because whatever the government may have done now, we should single-mindedly focus on what happened in Gujarat. It doesn't matter what happened after or before that. Fundamentally, the question here is about the riots and whether there was any lackadaisical attitude by the government at that time to allow killings of either side, right? It's not just one side people who got killed.
We have seen the Prime Minister, or then he was the Chief Minister, being tried in the courts and by all investigation agencies for 2 decades. Now, are we supposed to believe that for 2 decades, the Foreign Secretary, Jack Straw, had some facts that he couldn't give to the public at large, that he was so concerned about the entire riots, about the entire unfortunate incidents that happened during those days in 2002.
Yeah, so that's the question.
While the case was going on, he was nowhere to be seen. The BBC was nowhere to be seen as a media house. And when the clean chit happens, sometime later, just before the elections, during the year of G20 presidency, suddenly they come up with
fair enough.
evidence.
I want to take a final comment from Ashok Sarjanhar as well. I just want to understand from you, the comment that Jack Straw has made and the comment that Kanwal Sibal is making. Kanwal Sibal is obviously privy to some knowledge that others may not be because he was the Foreign Secretary at that time. When he says that this was slanted and there was mischief when it comes to this so-called report, UK sent its emissaries to Gujarat, etc., etc. I know that report has no value, but I want to understand from you, what do you think could be the acts that the UK could have had to grind to have a court-slanted report?
I think there can be a lot of speculation about that. What has been mentioned. One is the election coming up. The other is the G20. The other is, India's prestige is rising. India's prestige is growing. And you see whether it is the IMF chief, Kristalina Georgieva, or it is the World Bank, or it is the UNDP. All of them have been heaping encomiums of praise as far as Prime Minister Modi is concerned.
No, Mr. Sarjanhar, what I'm trying to understand is back in 2002, what could have been the motivations of UK to paint him as the villain?
You see, basically, again, this is as far as the fight with the BJP is concerned, even in 2002, basically trying to rake up that issue. And I think they really did not get any much material, and that is why what Mr. Kanwal Sibal has also said, that he sort of, gave a rap on the knuckle of the British High Commission here, so that they don't spread disinformation amongst the European countries.
And if there was such great proof, I'm wondering why that proof never came out into public. Not that a UK...
For the last 20 years.
For the last 20 years. Not that the UK government would make something public. I don't know if there are some examples of that. Some leaks have happened where government positions have come to light. Not so sure about this. But I've run out of time. I leave it at that. Whether this is a larger propaganda